everybody, welcome back to the show. Today we have a little bit of a surprise. We're going to review a show that's in progress, hasn't come to its conclusion yet for season one, but we're stepping into the Julian Fellowes realm of the Gilded Age. In case you haven't been a part of the Fellows movement with Downton Abbey, with Belgrade, which was another one he did. I forget what streaming platform that's on. There's so many streaming platforms now. I'm
I
glad
know,
some of
right?
them are merging, like HBO and Discovery and Showtime and Disney, or they're Paramount, one of the two. Anyways, there's more of these mergers happening, so at least we have fewer platforms to subscribe to because this shit's getting crazy. Pretty soon, cable's gonna go, this is why we bundle everything under one umbrella. But anyways.
No, they don't. They still make you pay for separate
Oh,
add-on
make you
channels.
pay for tons of shit you don't want. Oh, I know, but still. They're gonna say, we made it easy. It's all in one shopping stop. Yeah. But anyways. Okay, we're not here to review them. We're here to review the Gilded Age. Now, for those who don't know, the Gilded Age refers to, and it's a term that was coined by Mark Twain, and I forget the other author's name now off the top of my head, but they wrote a book called The Gilded Age, and it was a, not send-up, but a satirical look at the burgeoning aristocracy of the 19th century, which is the 1800s, for those who can't do their centuries, right? It was the 1800s. It was the era of the robber barons, and the train companies and all of the wealth that came out of the industrial age here in America. It was also the era of what's known as the dollar princesses, which is how you got Downton Abbey, with Cora being married off to Robert Grentham and therefore saving Downton from falling apart. So those were the dollar princesses, and the Gilded Age happens before we get to Downton Abbey's time frame at the beginning of that series. So this is like a step prior to that, and this shows how the whole Cora thing can come about. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to show how Americans bought into British society in order to elevate their status within the United States at this time. It covers, there's a wonderful channel that I'll put the link to in our show notes of a woman who is actually doing a historical reference to the women presented in the Gilded Age, which I found really fascinating. They're not very long. They're like 9 to 12 minutes, so you can easily consume them like while you're at a lunch hour or something, while you're eating your lunch. But they're wonderful because what she's done is she's taken the historical families, of which some are represented in the Gilded Age, and then she's taken the, I don't want to say fake families, but
the fictional.
Yeah, the fictional ones, and she's aligned them with who their stories most closely align in the historical context of the families that were there. So you get kind of this really neat combination of history and how fiction is being based off of history and who those people likely were. So it's kind of nice. So if you really want to kind of get a well-rounded view of the women who drove that, and Mrs. Astor on down, of the 400 Club, which is what they call the aristocracy of high society in New York, then I'll make sure to put the link down below so you can check out those videos. They're quite interesting, and they kind of give you a more of a gossipy kind of feel of some of the women that are portrayed in the Gilded Age. So, with that in mind, the first thing I want to say about the show, in and of itself, is I'm thrilled for the show being around because it started during COVID, when a lot of Broadway actors were out of a job. And Julian was already planning this. By the time Downton had started to end its run, he had already leaked he was going to start looking for something to be represented in America. He did this small series called Belgrade that was along the same era as what we have, but it's in the British Industrial Revolution. So this is now his move in the American circles. But I'm really glad that he was able, or they were able to cast from the actors that are known on Broadway, who have really great theatrical careers. And this gives them the ability to become more well-known in mainstream society. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to support it right from the get-go was when I heard that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all in. I want to support these actors because some of whom I've watched and seen on the Tony Awards and stuff like that. So I know who some of them were, but I'd never really seen their performances because I'm not in New York. So there you go. But so I was really thrilled that that's where the majority of the cast comes from, are from that realm of actors, and I think this is wonderful that they get a chance to really show what they're all about. So, with that context, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to give people a rundown of what the show's about, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we felt about it?
Well, you kind of did what the show's about. I'd like to point out some of the interesting differences between that and Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey starts with the sinking of the Titanic. This starts with the coming of the railroad and the building of a house of mystery. Specifically, a railroad family trying to enter the 400 Club has built a huge showpiece house right smack dab in the center of high society and has everybody talking about it because the architect is a little known and kind of controversial, but the house is flamboyantly massive. Like, by high society standards, it's the showpiece.
Yeah, as the kids say, it's drip all over the place.
And we have some really good characterization right off the front. Sort of a relative of someone in high society has lost her money, and so she has to come to New York to live with her aunts, her maiden aunts. But she befriends a black woman.
Not maiden. One is a maiden. The other
one's a maiden. Good point.
She's a widow.
Yeah. The other one just never married.
Yes. Yeah. She's the maiden.
But at the train station in Pennsylvania, her luggage and money are stolen, and a black woman pays her fare. So enter the U.S. race tensions right smack dab in episode 1. Thank you, by the way, for highlighting that. Fortunately, the aunt who this young woman goes to visit, who is played by none other than Christine Baranski, actually hires the black woman to be her secretary because she sees an education and an opportunity. So we get some really cool, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect that from Christine Baranski's character, who in all other ways is old money New York. We don't let the riffraff in.
And we should clarify that the reason why Twain coined the phrase the Gilded Age was because it was a facade.
Yes.
These were people who were morally questionable in many respects, but had so much money and could be so. And when there were two climes of that, there were the new money, the nouveau riche, or as Kevin Spacey says so eloquently in Midnight of Garden Good and Evil, it's the riche that counts, not the nouveau. And this is what this show is about. It's the arrival of the new money. It's basically the Vanderbilts, which is who the Russells represent.
Right.
The house that's built is in line with where the Vanderbilts built, which is Anderson Cooper's family. His mother was Gloria Vanderbilt. So it's kind of like you get that immediate thrust into old money versus new money, which are literally across the street from each other.
Right. Yes, very much so. A couple other characters I would like to point out is Christine's character's son. So Agnes is the character. Her son, Oscar, at the very end of episode 1, goes into a room with another man, and there is no mistaking exactly what that relationship is about. It's hidden, that the society doesn't know about it, but it's there in episode 1.
And in fact, you see him beforehand at the Van Ryn's house.
Yep.
He's introduced to Miriam, and Oscar's there, and Oscar's the one who does the introduction, and they immediately get him an in by saying he is descendant from John Quincy Adams.
Yeah, so Oscar's paramour is descendant from John Quincy Adams.
Yeah. So there's the old money reference that gets the guy in the door.
Yeah, right, exactly.
you have to kind of know your history in some of this, because that's what allows you. Basically, if your family has a member of the DAR, then chances are you could have an into the old money kind of thing because your family was around pre-revolution. So that's
Yeah, could. So here are my husband's and I's fears. Our fear is that people aren't going to latch onto it like they did Downton. It lacks the across the pond fantasy. It is very much an American story, and our
I wonder.
fear
I
is
wonder
that
if,
it's not going to grab audiences.
but I wonder if for Brits, it'll be the
Maybe,
reverse.
maybe. I'll have to ask. I have some friends across the pond
Yeah,
who
I was thinking that. Now that you said that, I'm like, okay, I can see your point, but maybe for the Brits, it will be a peek into what was happening across the pond that they were not aware of.
Mhm.
And they may find, oh, this is how Korra ties into, you know what I mean?
Right,
So it could
right.
have the opposite effect. Yeah, but I get your point.
Our other fear is that it doesn't. So Downton Abbey was brilliant in that it highlighted the lives upstairs and downstairs, the wealthy and the servants, and it did it really, really well. I'm not getting as much of that with this series. What I'm getting is old money versus new money, which you pointed out. But there's a little middle class part of me that's like, who the fuck cares about people with money? I don't care about their lives. Tell me about the people downstairs. And yes, we have Peggy, the secretary character, and
And
her
the black
family.
elites that occupy that
But
part of history
but
too.
we learn she's not necessarily poor. She is from the black elite part
Hmm.
of New York. So again, I'm like, this is still a story all about rich people.
It is and it isn't. Just because you were a black elite didn't necessarily mean that you didn't have the same hardships. I mean, Peggy
Oh, they had
still
hardship.
has all of the things that she has to deal with.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. She had all the race struggles to deal with, and I am not knocking that. But we don't get like the downstairs characters. They,
But you know what?
I
I
don't
kind
know.
of
I don't know
like.
them nearly as well as I would have known them in Downton by this point.
Yes and no. I mean, yes, it was more. You actually got more of the downstairs, and you got to see the upstairs by peering through the downstairs eyes. That
Mhm.
was how they were introduced in this one. In this case, I think because the Gilded Age isn't necessarily focused on the downstairs plight, it's more focused on old money versus new money and how that affects the downstairs, because it can have a drastic effect. If the Russells took a big gamble and lost everything, all of those people would suddenly be out of a job.
Sure,
So,
but it hasn't been written for me to care about them like Downton was.
um, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I do feel that way about, oh, what is the character's name? I gotta look her up real fast. Aurora, I believe. Uh, she's the young girl who's in the Van Ryn house, who's not the lady's maid, but she's kind of like the Daisy of the kitchen.
Oh, yeah, the one who
Her
doesn't
and
want to date the guy.
Yeah, and because there's something ominous there about her mother basically being a whore, and blah blah blah. So you kind of get the darkness of what's happened in her past, and you see that oh, it's Annie Morris, that's it. And you kind of see that she has more of a backstory there that I think we're going to get to know more of. I also think Jack will play a bigger role in that, because he obviously cares for Annie, but he doesn't quite know how to show that. And there's a part of him that is just being young and a young male who wants to get out and sow his oats in many respects. And so he's struggling with trying to figure out how does he show what he kind of has feelings for, but at the same time still live the life of an upwardly mobile. I mean, this is a boy who you could see could find a way to network with somebody and to work his way up, kind of like a Jack London type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of see that we're going to get some of that stuff. Plus, we got to see what was the other? God, I wish I had these prepared better. Sorry, people.
Well,
Um,
this kind of feeds to my point. We don't know the downstairs characters' names nearly as well as we would have on Downton by this point.
Yeah, and that's because we arrive from the downstairs. Like I said,
Hmm.
in the first episode, you're downstairs the majority of the time, and it's the Granthams who are the mystery.
Right.
Whereas in this one, it's the upstairs, but it's two different tracks that are going to eventually collide, and the downstairs ensemble will be affected by it. Um, so, but I think that it's coming. I feel it's coming.
All right.
I think there's
I'm not
enough
giving up
pepper
on the
there.
series. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
One of the things I do love, absolutely, without question, is the gentleman who plays Blake Ritson, who plays Oscar Van Ryn. I think he is deliciously queer, and he plays it so finely.
Yep.
And yeah, the thing is, I like him. When we had Thomas Barrows in Downton, you really had to struggle to like him.
Yep.
Whereas Oscar is playful enough.
Oh yeah.
You
Oscar's
see the he knows what the game is. He knows the game he has to play in this world. He's
Mhm.
figured it out already. He's just trying to align his pieces on the chessboard to have the best chance of winning. And as a queer person of that era, I now root for the gay character where I didn't necessarily before with Barrows. I
Right.
didn't get to that with Barrows until he had his struggle with his sexuality where he was trying to cure it.
Right.
Then I had empathy and I started to really feel for Thomas Barrows. But
Hmm.
prior to that, he was a really hard gay character to like, you know. And I think Oscar is in a much better position for queer people to understand and go, oh, I get
Hmm.
that. I know what that is.
Hmm.
And I think for Americans, he's much more accessible in that way.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting. I have a feeling this whole relationship between him and John Adams is actually going to come in between Oscar's evolution towards the end game he wants to play.
Of course it is.
And you can see that coming. And I think John Adams has his own game to play
Hmm.
that Oscar's not going to be aware of. And I think it's going to surprise
And not
him.
gonna like.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's going to become kind of nasty between the two of them, which, I think is great drama. That's what's great about it. And one of the things, like I said, when I first touched on the Gilded Age, the idea is that there's rot. There's something underneath that is not so seemly in the society that is projecting all this wealth and glamour, that there are a lot of questionable things that are happening in the background on all sides in order for, and you have to understand, in America, we've built a country on doing what you need to in order to make a success of yourself. And that's what's been promoted. Starting from this period, it really thrusts it forward. And you take advantages when you have an open opportunity. You don't even question it. You just do it because
Right.
it'll get you higher up on the ladder, and even, Carrie, who plays the amazing Bertha Russell.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. I love her. I mean, I know she's supposed to be a cutthroat and she's very much in the mold of Ada Vanderbilt. But I love her portrayal of it. She gets the game and she understands they're in it for the long haul. And every time her husband, George, played wonderfully by Morgan Spector, an actor I didn't know before this, but I'm thrilled that I get to see him perform because I think he's a wonderful actor.
Oh yeah.
But he, he often there's a couple points in there where he said, well, we risked this, we could end up back on, and she says, we've built it before, we'll build it again. That's the kind of partner you want if you're that kind of a player.
Hmm.
Someone who understands the games, what the risks are, and says, hey, I'm here. We've gotten this far. We'll roll the dice and do it again.
Can I just mention the other reason I love George Russell's character?
Mm.
He doesn't care about the high society bullshit at all.
No,
And
he's so focused on his career.
he loves his wife and he loves that she cares and he will support her in this, what he kind of views from my perspective, looks like it's kind of a silly little thing to him, but he'll support her in it.
Well, I think he understands why she's pursuing, because women
Yeah.
were in charge of the domestic affairs.
Yeah.
And, a husband could assert himself, but often didn't.
Hmm.
And that was just the way that it played out. But And I think, I think you're right. I think from a male perspective, we see it and we understand that George has his goals. He's driven. He has made quite a success for himself. He wants to make sure that he's providing for his family down the road. And if they're aligned with the Vanderbilts, that's pretty much how it happened for them during that era. What subsequently follows in the 20th century is you get this whole overspending of wealth, and basically by the time you get to Gloria Vanderbilt and her son Anderson, the wealth is gone because they've just spent more than they ever made back again.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a progression of the story that changes the Vanderbilt's fortunes. So what you see in the Gilded Age with the Russells, knowing it's more aligned with the Vanderbilts, you kind of know the trajectory of where all of this is going and how this new money eventually plays itself out and the family overindulges during the early 20th century. And so it's kind of interesting. For me, from a historical standpoint, I really love this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love when you toy with these elements and get to see some of this dramatized, and I do like that we have really great, brilliant black cast that is, doing the whole Harlem thing, and you're starting to see the burgeonings, what will eventually become the Harlem Renaissance later on in the 20th century.
Yeah.
You're seeing the machinations of it now, and you're seeing a brilliant cast that is portrayed, led by, what's her name? Danae Benton. She's phenomenal as Peggy. And Peggy is, I believe, based on Ida. Oh, I can't think of her last name now. Anyways, it's down, and I'll put that link to that channel because she does cover the Black elites as one of the elements of it. And it's quite interesting. But
Nice.
She actually has a historical character that Peggy Scott is based off of that actually was this type of pioneer in Black journalism, and
Nice.
it's really nice. There's a real focus there. So that's part of it. Even though, like I said, you get the Black elites, and you would think, but yeah, Black elites just means middle class. That's all it is for the Blacks. You know what I mean? It's
Understood.
middle class.
Understood.
Which is kind of interesting that that's the representation of high class of the Black society is the achievement of middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's the racism that applies in that period of time. So there's wonderful
100%.
things going back, and it is eye candy galore. I mean, it is eye candy across the board, men and women both. It's just a stunningly beautiful production. They spent the money on this show. They did not hold back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting. I also think it's interesting that Oscar Van Ryn got paired up with the lady's maid from the Russells. So you have that whole Thomas Barrow and
Right.
God, I can't think of her name now. Man, getting old is hard. I'm telling you, people. But you have that dynamic, the straight villainous and her gay counterpart kind of colluding and stuff is happening, And I don't think we've seen the last of her with her being dismissed from the Russell's house. No, there's something evil coming their way.
She's not done yet.
Yeah, that's very evident. We're now up to episode 8, which just released yesterday as we filmed.
Which I haven't seen yet.
Yes. And so it's nice because now we have Nathan Lane playing an actual historical character, and he's doing it brilliantly. He
Yep.
actually is. The Ward McAllister was this kind of just larger than life caricature that he invented for himself in order to make a splash in high society.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the gatekeeper for Mrs. Astor. What he says often goes. She relies on him to weed out the riffraff. So it's wonderful to see him taking up the mantle of someone who was just a real character in life, and he gets to, you see him and you think, oh, he's over the top. No, not the way he's written in history. He is spot on for what he's doing with that. It's almost like he's behaving as Ward
Right.
McAllister.
Right.
So, anything else for you to add?
No, because it's an ongoing series.
Yes. So we'll recap. I do want to do a brief recap. Okay, I do want to
Recrap?
do, recap. I want to do a recap of the end of Mrs. Maisel, which just aired at another episode in a later date. But
Okay.
because some things that we talked about in the Mrs. Maisel review, which I'll leave a link to up here, they're actually something that we talked about in mass towards the end actually plays out that way, the way Vance was hoping it would, and it's actually kind of a cool thing. So I think we should kind of just go back and capture that moment and talk about it when we get there. So, but on this one, when we do get to the end of the final episode, which I think will be episode 10, I think there's only 2 episodes
I think
left.
they're scheduled for 10, yeah.
Yeah, then we'll do a small recap of this show, what our final thoughts were for the first season. I don't know if they're doing a second season for Belgrade, which is kind of sad because
I haven't
it
seen
was
any
kind of an
announcements
interesting.
about it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it at all either, and I don't know if it just got tanked because of COVID, and then they just never picked it back up again. I don't know, but because they kind of left that one on a sort of cliffhanger. So, but anyways, let's get to our reviews. So, what are your ratings for it?
5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 4.53, 4.75. Now let me put those in context. Overall production, I'm going to put a couple of these together for a reason. Overall production, sound, lighting, score, art direction, costuming, all 5s. They spared no expense on any element of this. Down to original scoring, the lighting is stunning and always understood how to use. An interesting light ploy, just because I like to watch crap like this. New money gets nice, bright, like white spaces, but old money gets dark spaces. Watch for it. You'll see I'm right. Screenplay, gave that one a 5 as well. I think they nailed the language and some of the differences. Spot on. Casting 5. This cast is phenomenal. Pulled from Broadway, and I love when stage actors hit the screen because it brings a whole different feel. And I love that feeling. And I love actors who can go back and forth between them because they get it.
Yes.
Directing is where I gave the 4.5. And only because I think the director is missing some of the relationships that made Downton Abbey work. Like I mentioned previously, the upstairs, downstairs relationships. I still, 6 episodes, 7 episodes in, don't know all the names of the downstairs characters. And by now in Downton Abbey, I would have known their backstories as well as their names. So I do think some of what I like in most of Fellowes' work is missing. That's just a me thing. Queer themes presented, I only give it a 3, and only because it's such a massive cast, and Oscar and John are such, like, they're 2 very cool characters, and they're even central, but they're not the thrust of the story. And so they're having to be closeted to survive in this world, while definitely a queer story is not the thrust of the series. So I only gave it a 3 because there's not a whole lot of other representation, at least not yet. I am hoping Cynthia Nixon's character strays from the straight and narrow, but that's just a personal hope. I don't think it's going to happen. So personal overall was the 4.75.
All right. So mine aren't too far off from yours. The only one that I'll take down is the queer themes, and that's pretty much for the same reason that you had. But I'm giving it a 4.5 because I do see that with Barrows, it took you a while to realize he was queer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you struggled with it because he was not a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was quite bitter, which is fine. You know, I wanted to find something in him that I could latch onto. So I liked that as a viewer, I had to struggle with that. I kind of like characters like that. So for me, it was okay that they did it that way. With Oscar, I love his playfulness right from the get-go. You know, oh, this is a guy who you got to watch because, you know, and the thing is, you know, even he gets to the point where he will have a bigger say over what's going on with the family finances than his mother.
Yep.
So, because it is a man's world. At this point, it is still a man's world. And so it's going to, and that might I add that for people to know, the woman who plays Miriam, who's at the very heart of this whole thing, is actually Marilyn Streep's daughter. So
I did not know that.
thought that was kind of cool. Anyways, so I'll get back to mine. So they're pretty much fives across the board, with the exception of the queer themes, which I'm giving 4.5. So I end up with a 4.75 like you. So that's it for this one. Look forward to our next episode. We are actually going to review a new film that's just been released with the Australian singer, actor, songwriter Troye Sivan, called 3 Months. And so we hope that you will stop by for that review next week. So until then, this is S.A. Baz Collins
And Vance Bastion
saying we'll see you all at the movies. Remember to like, subscribe, and tell your friends. And while we're recording this is during the Ukrainian situation. If you can help out the Ukrainians, we have an episode, and I'll put a link up here for charities that you can contribute to. We want to show our support in any way we can, and we're doing our little part by trying to give people ways to support the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. So make sure you do that too. So remember to like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.